Assalamu alaikum. This video is going to be a little bit weird because this video is not going to be for everyone. So let me tell you what it is about, if you haven't figured out by the title of the video. So the Dice Tower, on a yearly basis, they do their top 100 games of all time, in which actually Tom, Z, and some other people like Mike and people vote for their favorite games of all time. Irrespective of the year, they do their top 100 games of all time. So it's nearly 400 games that they rank or tell us about, and they do it on 10 videos per day or 10 rank games per day. So that's 40 games per day. So that by the end, you will have 400 games being told about, which everyone likes in their top 100 category. And many people like to watch. So Dice Tower got around 4 million views this year, which was a record for them as well. And of course, people love to watch them and always like to compare that, okay, which games do we like, which games do they like? And same was the case for me as well. That me and my wife were going through all the top 100. We did that last year as well. But this year, I was also collecting some of the stats as well. That okay, in each of the category and with each of the reviewer of Dice Tower, where do our choices match and how do our choices match against the people's choice? And by choices, what I mean is which games do I have in my collection? Of course, there will be always some esoteric game that no one has heard about. So for example, I will have, come out, Rocket Jockey. No one even knows about that game, and I might have that in the collection. But there will always be those all-time favorites that people are going to have in the list. And this is going to compare the top 100 games that were presented by Dice Tower against my collection of games. So I'm not ranking these games in my top 100 games, so don't consider them as my top 10 list or anything. This is just a comparison of where does my collection compare as compared to the top 100 games presented by them. Now, I keep on saying top 100 games, but as I said before, that these were really top 400 games because there were 4 people, Tom, Z, and Mike this year, plus the people's choice, where the people voted and selected their best games. So this ended up having 400 games. So the first stat is that I took a list of all the games that they had mentioned and then tried to filter out that how many unique games they actually mentioned, because of course there are going to be duplicates on the list, there are going to be crossovers on the list. So when I filtered those, that comes out as 293 games. So it's not 400, it's nearly 300 games that are on the list that they actually liked. And out of those, I had 59 games in my list. So out of around 300 games, I have around 60 games in my collection, which I still think is a good number. Having around 25% or 20% of the games, which are what people call all-time best games, is a very healthy number. Again, that number can change from person to person. A completionist would want every, for example, game on the BGG top 100, but I don't think that way. I don't think everyone needs all the games on BGG's top 100, because if you don't like a certain type of game, maybe you don't even need to try it once you know your taste. If you don't know your taste, yeah, go ahead, play it, then decide, or take a look at few reviews and then decide whether the game is going to be right for you or not. So for example, heavy dry Euros, they will not be for me. Very deep dexterity games, maybe not for me. Real-time games, not all of them are going to be for me. Party games, surely not going to be for me, because I play with smaller groups. So party games, I just don't have that many in my collection. Very few I keep, like Decrypto, but Not many, unless they have some substance. I'm not that kind of gamer. So that's why every person's collection is going to be different. So for me, the first stat is that out of 293 unique games that were presented, I own 59 of those unique games. Now, which games are those? Before I go into the more juicy stats, which I will go into, so you have to keep watching. Let me just quickly, briefly try to briefly go through those unique games that I do actually own. And I will try to make it quick so that nobody is bored. So I will just read through this list. That's why I have a laptop today, because of course I cannot memorize all those names. But I'm going to read through them. And who doesn't like reading a storybook to them? Nobody? Well, you have to. So these games which I own and also came up on anyone's top 100 list are Blood Rage, Terraforming Mars, Smartphone Inc., Maracaibo, Funkoverse, Raiders of the North Sea, Century, Spice Roads, Mansion of Madness 2nd Edition, Sheriff of Nottingham, Scythe, Ticket to Ride, Onitama, Forgotten Waters, Wingspan, Targi, Near and Far, Kemet Blood and Sand, Quacks of Quedlinburg, Chronicles of Crime, Space, Gloomhaven, The Crew, Mission Deep Sea, Azul, Horrified, Takinoko, The Quest for El Dorado, Love Letter, Gloomhaven, Jaws of the Lion, Tapestry, Cthulhu Wars, Everdell, Cthulhu Death May Die, Root, Archaeology, The New Expedition, Quadropolis, Ticket to Ride Europe, Istanbul, Citadels, Marvel Champions, Arkham Horror the Card Game, Yamatai, Seven Wonders Duel, Jamaica, Pandemic, Aeon's End, Catan, Legendary Marvel, Stone Age, Codenames, Calico, Welcome to, Patchwork, Splendor, Power Grid, Clank Legacy Acquisitions Incorporated, Carcassonne, Great Western Trail, The Crew, Quest for Planet 9, Concordia, Pandemic Regular, Iberia, Pandemic Legacy Season 1, and Castles of Burgundy. Well, that was quick. Now, how I also gave points to some of the games is that if a game is, well, the same game but just a slightly different variation of it, then I gave it a half point. If it is exactly the same game, just different edition, then I merge them into one. So for example, there was on Mike's list, for example, there was Kemet first edition, and on everyone's else list it was Kemet second edition, Tom's list especially. So what I did was just merge because they are the same game. But if it is Ticket to Ride and Ticket to Ride Europe, they're slightly different, but mainly the main game. So in that case, I gave my list half a point. Same goes for example, Century Golem Edition and Century Spice Road are essentially the same game, but different artwork. So I gave it half a point. That there is slight difference, but essentially the same game. And that's how 59 came up. That maybe it's the not exactly the same game, but it gives the feeling of the same game. So that's worth half a point, and that's what this list is. So that's why some names are repeated as well, but they are essentially kind of same game. And these are the 59 games. Now going back to the stats, when I try to put them, so they did these videos in 10 batches. So for example, 100 to 91, then 90 to 81, 80 to 71. What I try to do is, okay, check that how many games did I match in each of these categories. So when I match this, the graph looks something like what you're seeing on the screen. And you will see the trend line, which I've shown in orange here, that what you will see is that as you get closer to the, especially after the top 50, that as you go closer to the top 10 list, the more matches I have of my list with all four of the dice tower. And that shows that people's choices or the most favorite games are kind of common. Whatever people like, I'm liking as well, because of course I'm part of the people as well. Also, a unique thing that you see in this graph is that near the 100 mark, there is a high rise as well. And I expect that if they went actually before top 100 list and they went from 100 to 200, you will see a high rise in the numbers as well. Because there are many games in my collection which might not make anyone's top 100 games, but I really love them. And maybe people do too, but they don't think that it's worthy to actually put them in the top 100, and that's why they might sit within the top 100 to 200. Example of these games would be games like Camel Up, Downforce, Survive. These are so excellent games. People love these games, but they didn't come up in the top 100 games, and I'm surprised on that. Even though if you ask anyone who has played these games, everyone loves them. They are in my top 100, but maybe not in others people top 100. And that was surprising to me. And that's why I'm 100% sure. And that's why the trend was showing that closer to 100, people were more relaxed in adding these kind of maybe slightly older games. But, or I should not say older, because if it is too old, then people do have a nostalgia for them. And if it is too new, then people do have a habit of recency. I will not say cult of the new, but recency. If you are recently playing a lot of new game, you will love it. For example, these days I'm playing a lot of Forgotten Waters. So it's one of the best games these days I'm playing. But once I'm done, I haven't touched it for a while, it will lose its charm as well. Other games will come in its place. So there is always a factor of recency. Downforce, Camel Up, these are the kind of games that came in between. And if you have not played them recently or don't have that nostalgia factor, then maybe people forget to actually vote for them in the top 100 list. And that's where I think these games lacked. And if they made a 100 to 200, a lot of my games, which I think are worthy to be on this list, will come on this list. Another surprising thing which was missing on the list was, of course, legacy and exit type games, escape room type games, because these are mostly one and done type games. And Tom had mentioned that he has excluded those games from the list because, again, considering the recency factor, that if you play them, they are the best games in the world. But after you are done with them, there is no point keeping them in the top 100 list because, well, you're not going to play them anymore. But I consider that they are worthy to be kept in your top 100 because, well, you need to tell people that you have loved them once. And if someone wants to actually buy some games based on your preference, then where do they rank? And that's the purpose of top 100 list. So in my opinion, unlock game, exit games, all the legacy games that are there, My City, Pandemic Legacy Season 0, Clank Legacy, even games like Legend of Endor, these games need to be on the list. And again, I think if they made 100 to 200, these games might pop up, which will cover many of the games that I have on my shelf. So that's the trend that you see. But overall, again, the main key thing that I see, that I had matches in each of these categories. There was never a day or never a top 10 list in which I had no match in that list. So it was a good fun thing that we were doing. We were taking a notepad. Ooh, we matched with Mike today. Ooh, one more game with Z today. Well, Z's choice are esoteric, but more on that in the next one. Who does my taste match with? And that's this graph, in which you can see that my taste matched with Mike only 18% of the time. Then Z was 15%. With Z, you can always expect that majority of the people choice will not match with Z because Z likes a lot of esoteric, old, small card games, and maybe not everyone is going to have their choices match with Z. That does not invalidate Z's choices. It's just he presents a different point of view to games. And my wife said, maybe the game developers make these kind of small, medium-sized games just for him, because we want big games. And there were very few big games on Z's list, mostly evil games. You love evil games. So if you're making a big game, make it evil and then Z will like it. That was the trend with Z games. So my least matches were with Z's games. Then Tom was, of course, second on the list with 21% of the matches with Tom's list. So all of his top 100 games, 21% of those games I own. But my biggest match was with the people. 41% of the games that people like, I also own as well. I am part of the people. So these are public opinion games. So maybe, and that also tells a trend that maybe Z, Mike, and Tom, they have more exposure or more variety of games to play each time. They have to keep updating their list. They have to add new games to the list so that every year they can present something new. Otherwise, it will be a very boring kind of list. But people don't play that many games as compared to people at the Dice Tower. So when you think about that, you have to think that people's choice varies very little over time. So that means games like Catan will still be on my shelf, will still be on your shelf, but may have moved away from shelf of Z and Tom and Mike long back. And that was pretty evident because Catan didn't make the list. They are not fan of that game, but I still love that game. I played more than 300 games now, different board games, but I still love Catan. But again, that shows the trend of the games that I have matches with the people at the Dice Tower. So that was the different kind of fun stats that I like to see that, okay, who my taste matches with. What's the importance of stats like this other than fun? Of course, it's fun to actually go through that list, and I will leave a link to their playlist for the top 100 games in case you want to watch it. Again, it's nothing that you need to watch so seriously. You can just play it while you are having your dinner together or have some fun free time. Just keep going through that list. It's a fun time. The dynamics of the people at Dice Tower is fun to actually see and make fun of each other. It's always fun to actually sit through their top tens. But the importance of seeing stats like this is to understand that who your taste matches with. It tells you more about the reviewer's taste, reviewer's choices, so that tomorrow when you see a review of a board game, then you are able to take a decision that, okay, my choice more match with this kind of person. If he likes this kind of games, then if he's suggesting this thing, then I will like this thing as well. Or if he doesn't like this thing, I'm actually opposite to him, so maybe I will like this thing. So this gives you a better perspective that what are you going to like. For example, my choices with Mike were very close to Tom's choices, but Mike had more, I will say, Kickstarter stuff on his list. Eldervale, Dwellings of Eldervale, Vengeance, and those kind of games which you might find hard to find on the retail market. So maybe I'm interested in those games, but I cannot find them in retail. I cannot find them easily. Maybe if I had, maybe my choices would more align with mine. But at least now I understand that my choices are aligned with Mike's choices. Only thing is that sometimes the numbers may be low, but at least by seeing the list or at least the top 10, I understand that those were the games which were harder to find. Tidal Blades is another example, a big Kickstarter game. The region that I live in, Kickstarter is not really a viable option for shipping point of view. So I have to go for retail games unless I'm buying secondhand from someone, which is harder even more. So anyway, that's the purpose of these kind of stats, so that you understand the reviewers more by looking at their top 100, top 10s, top. You have a collection, you have your likes, you can always match them with the people, with the reviewers, and then make up your mind. And that is always more useful, other than it's just being fun. So that was my collection comparison with the Dice Towers top 100. And if you're more interested in watching those top 100 games of all time, then I'll leave a link below and you can move away from my channel and watch Dice Tower now instead. That's it for me. Happy gaming.